If you thought spices only belong in Indian food, think again. I used to think the same way until I realized I could add spices to any dish I wanted. I just had to be careful about what spices I used and how I used them. In today's video, I'm going to show you 3 ways to add spices to your everyday cooking that'll spice up your food and life. Whole spices in fat. This is the easiest method to add spices to your cooking, and the result is a low hum of spiciness in the background. The idea is to infuse the flavor of the whole spices into a warm fat of your choice, which then permeates into the dish. Heat up some ghee, butter, oil, or a fat of your choice, and make sure that it's not screaming hot, otherwise your spices will burn and become bitter. Add whole dried spices like cardamom, cinnamon, dried red chili, etc., and then continue following the steps in your recipe. The result will be a delicious dish with the flavor of the spices infused throughout the dish. Use this technique to make braised dishes like stews or casseroles. I sometimes use this technique to make an intensely flavorful stock. I also use this technique while confying garlic to make my version of a simple chili oil. Powdered spices. This is as easy to execute as the whole spices technique. Use powdered spices if you want to take the flavor of your dish to the next level. Take it even further by grinding your own spice powders. I've shown you in a previous video how to roast and grind your own spice powders and which grinder I use. I've linked that video down below for you. Powdered spices are added in the middle of the cooking process, which results in their intense aroma being front and center of the dish. Add powdered spices to the base of your sauces after you've added the aromatics like ginger, garlic, and onions. I use powdered spices to flavor my tomato sauce. Usually, once you add the powdered spices, make sure that you cook the sauce for some time to deepen the flavor of the powdered spices and bring their intense aroma out. Use this technique to make sauces for your pasta or meatballs. I usually add ground coriander and red chili powder to my tomato sauce. Add powdered spices to finish off your dish. I add powdered cumin to my roast potatoes to add a nice kick. Tempering. This technique adds the most flavor to your everyday cooking. Use this technique when you want to add a burst of flavor to your dishes. Tempering is added at the end of the cooking process. I used this technique to spice up my butternut squash soup in last week's video. This technique involves warming some ghee, oil, butter, or fat of your choice and blooming the spices. Blooming is a technique that refers to cooking the spices in a warm fat until their aroma comes out. This technique also takes powdered spices to the next level. Use this technique to spice up any kind of soup. This technique also adds a burst of flavor to any type of dips or chutneys. Sometimes I use this technique as a warm dressing for a hearty salad. And I'm sure that this technique would work perfectly as a spiced basting to your steak. This technique would be a perfect finishing step to add that extra layer of flavor to your steak. Adding spices to your dishes can be intimidating sometimes because there are so many to choose from. But remember, there are no rules and you can use the techniques I shared to create the flavor combinations you love. Which everyday dish would you spice up? Let me know in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to my channel if you want to dive into the depths of Indian cuisine and culture.